Um, I'm asking for intercessors to start as we do this, but it's all good. I hope it will really be of good value to everyone after all the trouble. The South African property sector, as I said when we started, this is a 5.5 trillion sector. You can see that's quite sizable. And if we look at commercial, that's only 1.3 trillion. And the residential market is actually quite huge. It's 3.9 trillion. That's and I think that's where most of the estate agents are playing in the residential. As much as the commercial one, it's there, but it's still smaller than the residential market. You can imagine the population of South Africa as big as it is. Everybody is looking for a home. It's actually shocking that in Gauteng alone, there's almost 1 million people added every year coming from different people in terms of the population to become citizens of Gauteng. That means the demand for housing keeps on increasing, the demand for accommodation. In terms of, if you look at even the informal market as it is, it's actually quite big. A lot of people in Gauteng alone, I'm not even looking at other provinces, just Gauteng, which is, by the way, it's about the third or the fourth biggest economy in Africa. You are looking at more people coming here looking for, of course, better opportunities, or the African dream, as I would put it. And all those people are looking for accommodation, and hence it makes sense. Even the commercial part is lagging a little bit behind. Let me unpack the commercial. That will include about that's about 500 billion, which goes to retail. Offices, it's almost 300 billion. Industrial, 281 billion. Hotels, it's 94 billion. Then we come to the public sector. The public sector holds about 400 billion in terms of property. So that's a lot. Some of it is state-owned, some it's owned by the municipality, some it's owned by the public works. When you go to residential, you have formal sector, most of it. The informal, as I said, it's not actually registered. This is the most interesting part when it comes to zoned land. The only around 0.5 trillion, which is quite a small number when it comes to zoned land. And those who are in development will understand that we are actually mostly looking at land that is zoned to be able to use. And zoned land, it means land that is not developed. That means even for residential, the municipalities and all that may not be able to use that land for residential. I personally think there has to be a new way of thinking in terms of providing residential accommodation, especially in places like Gauteng or the bigger cities, even including even Cape Town. Okay, so this is where you are playing at. They normally say that if you enter any business or any sector as an entrepreneur, the first thing you need to understand is how big is the market, so that you can be able to determine the piece of pie that you want to take and what are you going to dominate. No one gets into a particular sector or in business just looking at without a proper understanding. Then it means you won't even know whether you are doing well or not. But as for us, I mean, we look at even the Bemore group. We have said we want 1 billion rand property, which we have come to by 2023. We have come to realize that's actually too small. Out of the pie, the 5.5 trillion pie, we want something little bit bigger than 1 billion rand. So this is the economy. This is the sector that we are playing in. Next slide. If I were to break it down, I just want to look at, because these are some of the things that drive. If we don't understand the economics of it, we won't be able to understand how to be able to make profit out of it, what really drives the sector as a whole. And I think the economy, it's really to look at some of the factors that drive this real estate economy. As I said, we are looking at the urban development zone, that's the urban development land, that's only 1.1%, which contribute about 520 billion. The contribution to this, the South African economy is 238 billion, and that comes from different taxes that we are paying. When you buy land, when you buy a house, you are going to pay your tax. So all that capital tax gain, all those are contributing, the employment, all the people that are employed in the sector. We are looking at a sum of 238 billion as a contribution to the economy. The economic impact, residential, you are looking at 123 billion. The repo rate, as we speak, I think I've missed to put it there. I think it's around 3.5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it's around 3.5. It has just been revised yesterday. The South African Reserve Bank have just revised our repo rate, or the lending rate, which effectively means the interest rate has moved from 7.25 to 7%. The JIBAR rate also effectively goes down to 7.6%. So what all this really means, I mean, the inflation rate, it's 4.5. You know that in South Africa we use what we call inflation targeting, and it's between 4% and 6%. So within that range, we are able to adjust our interest rate accordingly while we are looking at the inflation. So I think on Monday, Nomisa explained quite a lot about inflation and how it really works. So all this, what does it mean to the property sector? And these are the key inputs. So when interest rate is low, it means people can be able to get a bond at a cheaper rate. People can be able to get credit at a cheaper rate, which means it's much easier for people to get. I mean, one of the biggest players in this, it's the banks. They make it difficult, or they can make it easier for you to be able to buy property. Some of you who've been with us for a while will tell you that it's actually better to use debt to be able to buy property. That goes for residential, that goes for those who are doing commercial, that goes for developers. All of us are looking at using that debt, and that effectively facilitates the property market. And if you can look at other markets, like other countries, like in Nigeria, you look at other, especially in Africa, most of the countries, people still buy cash. They don't have the kind of banking system that we have here. They don't have the kind of debts that we can be able to access here. But in South Africa, all of this market, and I mean, you go back to 2008, the crash, one of the biggest issue was, or the cause where the epicenter of it all was, the most affected sector was the real estate sector. And part of it, the banks had to come in, the government had to come in to bail out the banks, because it would also effectively mean more people are left out. It would effectively mean the economy will go down. So the residential market is very key in any economy. So let's look at some of the terms. If we talk about, there's a buyer's market, or what we call the seller's market. A buyer's market occurs when the supply or available homes for sale exceed demand. The number of buyers seek to purchase the homes. So basically, when we say it's a buyer's market, it means it's more favorable to the buyer. Right now, the market that we are in, it's the buyer's market. It's easy to be able to get debt from the bank. The banks are actually giving 100% bond as we speak now. They are making it easier for people to be able to get bond. It also means that it's easier to negotiate even for price, because there are more homes that are available in the market. I mean, we've seen big developers like Baldwin. They had to literally slash the prices. They had to even sometimes give they pay the rates for you for the whole year, for instance. Those are some of the things. They're just making it easier because they have so many properties that are available than the people were able to buy. But right now, buyers can be able to choose. Buyers have the right of refusal. It's more favorable for them. And I think for the real estate, you play in these two markets. When it's a buyer's market, it also works for you. When it's a seller's market, it's also a different ball game. And I think it's important as an estate agent to be able to understand these different times or different seasons that the market has to go through. It's said that when it's time sometimes when schools have to close, there's actually more sales that are happening during that time. When it's holiday season, there are more sales that happen during that time. Boss Tole, just to go back on the previous slide, a seller's market occurs when demand exceeds supply. There are more buyers seeking to purchase homes than there are available in the market. This often leads to multiple buyers interested in single property and resulting in bidding war. So when it's the seller's market, it literally means it favors the seller more. The seller has an upper hand. And if you look at what has happened in the economy has not been doing well. Beside COVID, actually, it has worked to our favor. COVID, to some extent, it has helped this sector because the economy has been stagnant all the way from last year. When this year began, we were hit by the junk status. All those things by the rating agency meant that our economy is literally not growing. When the economy is not growing, people don't have enough money. People are reluctant to be able to spend money. People are losing jobs in the process. And then the second wave that came, the third wave actually, it's now COVID-19, which literally meant that the economy was closed. No one was buying. People were not able to be evicted. All those has affected the market. And definitely the sellers, those who wanted to be able to sell, they were struggling at the time. So the lower interest rate have made it even much better for people to be able to absorb all the properties that were actually sitting, lying from last year. There are houses that were not able to sell all the way from last year until now. Right now, I think if we talk about timing, is the best timing even for estate agents to get into the market. You will be able to get properties that are literally sitting. You have a group of people who have to literally downgrade from where they were. Some have to sell their holiday homes. 3 months back, if you would visit Hartebees, I mean, even now, Harpies, those are mostly holiday homes. Most of the houses are on sale. The market, it's literally everybody wants to make sure that they sell. Why? They are downscaling. It's probably their second home. So it means that for the sellers, it's not really the best. The wave has changed and allowed for buyers to be able to have access, and it's good. That means those excess properties that were sitting from last year now can be able to get sold because interest rates are low. You still have people, of course, who are skeptical, who will say maybe you need to wait a little bit. You need to wait the next 2 months or so, so that things will get better. I believe that prices will literally go down. The prices of houses will go down. Those who will hold on, they will actually be on the losing side. Let's go next. I hope this is really understandable to everyone. Any question before we move further? Okay, I will continue. So for all of you who are listening, the time is now. This is the perfect timing for you to be able to make it. Now, the other thing that you need to look at, it's being, and I mentioned this even when we were doing the opening on Monday, the value creation, or being part of the value creator. So I'm gonna look at a few, and I'm just browsing through. Of course, the landowners, they are the value creators. What do we mean when we talk about value creation? If we are talking about property, by the time we have a house standing and we say this house is of this particular value, this house can be sold, this house can be used by people, people can be able to capture that value. It's because somebody had to be there in the beginning. Somebody had to create that value. Somebody had to create something that can be sold. Somebody had to create that product that there can be an exchange of money. And ultimately, it means the benefit to the one who's buying is that they get a home. The one who's selling, they get to get the money. The estate agents are also involved in there. So if we talk about property, all begins primarily with the land. So the one who owns the land is the first person who creates the value. It moves further. We have the professional team that gets involved. They design the plans. They look at what can we do with this land. They use their professional opinion and expertise and put together the different designs, the different 3Ds that you have, like the picture that I have here. It's a 3D picture. This is it's not really an existing house, so existing building. So it shows these professionals, when they get there, they paint the picture of what is possible. Of course, one can even go back to the people who the land surveyors, the municipality, who have already earmarked what is going to happen there. So before somebody comes and think about putting something, when the land was zoned, there was already an idea of what kind of value can come out of there. For the municipality, of course, they create economic zones, they create areas where they know they can be able to get the money. That's their income. So the professionals will do that. Then we move on. The property developers, they become the key people in terms of value creation. They will be the ones who will invest in buying the land, who will invest in developing that land to become something of value. We have the financiers or the funders. They are the biggest facilitators of this value creation. Without them, it becomes very difficult to get this done. And then the contractors, before I move to the estate agents, then the contractors, they are the ones who are going to really put the brick and mortar and make this thing to become visible, so that everybody can be able to see. What was just an idea now becomes something of real value. And then the estate agents. And I think when it comes to this, they're underrated, but they are actually the stars of this, because they hold the middle. They are the ones who pull the levers. They are the ones who make this thing happen. And sometimes really they sell these dreams to the people who are going to buy. They sell the dream to the house that has not yet been built. They will sell it to the potential buyer, or the potential tenant, or the potential owner of the building. They are the people, and mostly, though undermined, they get commission, they facilitate the process. But I think for me, if estate agents don't actually realize that they are part of value creation, that's a big miss up. Because when you understand that, you actually now realize how to stack yourself up. You will realize that it may start from residential. The understanding has to grow to now, it's a different game on how commercial plays. Once you grow in your understanding, you can be able to pace yourself to say, now I'm willing to sell this much. Now I need to be able to create relationships with developers. I need to be able to be closer to, of course, the funders or the bond originators and all that. So this relationship is facilitated by this person called an estate agent. And I think they play a very big role. And big ups to Rina, big ups to all the people, Selma, all the people that are already playing a role in this, and the new, and you guys who are coming into the sector, big ups to you, because you will play a big role for somebody to be comfortable and be able to have a home, for somebody to be able to have an office. I don't know how it's going to happen in the future since we are working from home, but the ultimate thing is that the real estate will still and remain with us. Let's move on. I hope this gets you really excited. Okay, now, after understanding the value creation, it's to say, while I'm facilitating, while I'm this middle person, how do I really earn? How do I make sure that I'm part? And I think one of the most frustrating, maybe drawing from my own experience, from my background, where I come from, being involved in helping others create business. And I was not actually just a guy behind the desk. When I worked at the Innovation Hub, I helped entrepreneurs build businesses, help them with funding. From an idea, it becomes something solid. But I was never part of it. I was just a guy who's facilitating this. But I'm saying there's a bigger picture for estate agents as part of growth. And it depends on where do you want to put yourself. And we also look at the different aspects of how you can be able to make money. There's a once-off. There is a money that can continue to be generated as long as money keeps flowing. Think about it. If we look at sale, it's a once-off. That's off. It's supposed to be once-off. The sales market, you are actually facilitating a sale. Somebody has to come and buy the house. Somebody has to buy a building. Somebody has to buy land. It's normally a once-off transaction. But it does not end there. Though that is a once-off, there are people who would prefer to just be involved in sales. And mostly people would say, okay, sales has a lot of money because percentage-wise, you can be able to, at a once-off, once the transfer happen, you can be able to make, I think Rina can also you can actually make around 10% out of that. I think that's probably standard. It can go even up to 15%. Rental. So while sale is a once-off for that particular time, one can be able to pay. If you are selling in a development, for instance, it's a group of, it's a development that has multiple houses, you can be able to pace yourself to say, if I sell this number of houses, this is how much commission I can be able to generate, as opposed to just selling individual houses that are not necessarily part of a development. So that's how one can be able to position themselves. Rental, for me, and even from a developer point of view, we always look at this as perpetual income, perpetual cash flow. It's not just for the developers. It's also the same thing even for the estate agents. The key factor, and I think this one, when it comes to you putting your value out there when you work with developers, from a developer point of view, I need to be able to know that I can be able to make money at the end of the month, to be able to pay for my bond, for instance, to be able to pay the people who have, to show the investors who have invested in this development that we are actually making money. But if I'm not realizing the rental, so you can understand how important this role is. If I'm not realizing the rental, or the agent is taking for granted what definitely I'm not going to put that agent back again. So that relationship is important. Credit control. So this is what I call tenant management. It's managing the actual money. It's also managing the tenants that are coming in. That relationship becomes critical. So for me, an estate agent, the moment you look at it that way, it's a serious businessman. It's not just transaction that passes and then you don't even care about the tenants that are there. It's about making sure that perpetual income it's realized. And The only way that happens is when relationships are kept well. The other part is property management. And property management goes to it while it can involve the issue of maintenance, it involves the issue of the actual property. So it has little to do with tenants themselves. It has more to do with the actual property. Developers are mostly growing to realize that we need other people while we are focusing more on getting more development. We need somebody to take care of our properties. It's not necessarily the core business of the developer. Though developers, when they understand, and I think this knowledge, when we are passing it even to developers, we are saying, understand what it means to manage your property. Even when somebody takes care of that, you will already know. I gave an example in the beginning of the week to say, we learned the hard way. We woke up one day, we need to be able to manage this property. We had to create, and that's how Pomet got created actually from the start, because the agents that were there were not giving us the value that we thought we need as developers. The building is ready to be opened, but there were not tenants that were ready. So it meant that we need to learn the hard way. We need to learn things that we didn't know. We need to make sure that the tenants are there. All those things that are relevant, that are needed. And part of it was to say, let's create Pomet as an estate agent initially, internally, so that it can be able to manage these things. We had to learn everything from scratch, the hard way, and big ups to Selma. I hope she's here. Some of those learnings were hard, but we managed to keep it going. That's why the building is still there. It has not burned down, and it kept on making money even when times were hard. So it's important that estate agents are able to realize that this is part of the flow of money. You go to now bigger estates. Big estates don't necessarily, developers are out. Now we need estate agents to now come in as property developers, as property managers, to be able to look at all the aspects that are related to managing the whole property, all those things. So these are the different income streams. Of course, the fourth one is when you are looking at it, besides just being an agent, now you are looking at creating an agency on its own. But it all begins by being an intern estate agent, all the way to building up. Once you are registered, ultimately you become a principal. Then you can be able to open your own, maybe your own franchise. I'm sure Pomet, that's the down the line, that people can be able to have their own franchise in different areas. And that's how it grows. So if you ask me, can you look at an estate agent and look at them as just an ordinary person? No, they are a serious businessman. They are the business people. They are key in the sector. Without them, the sector will not be able to thrive. And ladies and gentlemen, in looking at this, I really think we can be able to, this is a way for me to say the sector is there. We have 5.5 trillion that is available. If you think about it, 10% of that, how much is it? Every subsector, residential, if you look at just 10% of that, how much of that? All that flows in the hands of estate agents as commission, and part of that, every transaction that happens, it's key. So I really think this is something that is of a greater value. As a start, we all need to have this knowledge practically and become effective. Ultimately, we become great entrepreneurs. And I thank you. I hope I've added some value. This week has been an awesome week. And thank you, Bostole. Hello?
Hello, Moses. We can hear you. Thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramabulana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baba.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come